Hey guys, Griffin here. Today we're going to talk about how not to get laid off and what you can do to hopefully ensure that you're in the right department and you're not going to get laid off by your employer if you're in a large tech company like I find myself in. And so, with all of the layoffs that have been going on in places like Amazon, Snapchat, Google, Meta, which used to be Facebook, there's all sorts of fear in tech right now. That you might be the next person to get laid off, right? And so we're going into a potential recession and companies are starting to cut costs any way that they can. Employees are a massive part of business expenditures. And so if you can ensure that you are vital to your business, you will have a much better success of not getting laid off. And then you will be able to deploy that money that you've earned through having a job in the upcoming recession and come out on top. And that's what we're really trying to showcase here on this channel. And so the first thing you'll want to do in order to ensure that you don't get laid off in the upcoming recession is to make sure that your department is completely essential to your company. And so if you're in a department that is something like database management or IT or a product market or the product development that is essential to the growth of the business, then you're probably okay. Some departments that might not be as okay would be research primarily, user experience. Maybe you're working on some sort of fringe development like Web3, for example. Then you are at a conventional business, then you might be in trouble and it might be time to sharpen up your resume. And so if you are worried that you're going to get laid off and you have the ability to transfer departments, that might be something you would want to look into if you're dead set on staying at your current job. There's a point to be made of a lot of companies are snatching up people that have been laid off from other jobs. For example, when Elon Musk took over Twitter and a lot of their employees were laid off, I know that several companies reached out to those employees in order to try and find them a new home, right? And so that may not be a problem for you if you get laid off, but if you are in dire financial straits and you need to have that income set aside, for one, I would recommend that you try and do your best to get out of debt and make sure that you're set up financially and with an emergency fund for the next 3 to 6 months, just in case the worst does happen and your company either lays you off or maybe even goes bankrupt, depending on the company that you're at. If you can make sure that you are set up personally well financially, you're going to be much better off in this upcoming recession than if you rely on the income given to you by your employer. And that segues pretty well into our second point, which is to try and ensure that your company has good financials. This could be even debt-free, but it's probably unlikely if you're at a larger corporation. You just want to make sure that they aren't going to necessarily need to take out more debt in the current environment in order to survive. If you don't have more than a year's runway at your current expenditure rate, then it might be time to try and jump ship to a more stable corporation if that's something that you're interested in. And so this is something that I think is going to become very apparent in the next 6 to 12 months because rates are very high right now. And so most companies are going to have to pay a lot to their debtors in order to ensure that they get a loan. Now, loans will probably be available because of the Federal Reserve. They're just not going to be very attractive. And so corporations are going to have a pretty tough bid to try and get that money from investors right now. And so they're going to have to pay a premium for that. And so if you are not in a company that is mostly debt-free or at least financially stable, I would highly recommend that you start putting out your feelers and try and find a different company if job stability is what you're prioritizing right now. Because that turmoil could very quickly come to light if your company just has a decline in sales and maybe they don't make as much money as they're anticipating in the next 6 to 12 months, which could be likely. And so you'll be able to be ahead of the curve there if you can get out while the getting's good, right? There's still lifeboats on the Titanic if you act now. And so the last point that I want to make sure everyone is aware of for whether or not you're going to get laid off is that you're putting in the work. You need to ensure that you are as vital to the company that you are trying to retain yourself at as you can be. And this would mean things like putting forth an action-based bias. You are going to try and go out of your way to provide value to the company, even if they don't ask you for it. Now, this is difficult to do, especially if you're also working part-time and juggling, more than one position. It can be difficult. But thankfully, if you are juggling more than one position, you have some insulation to being laid off through that. And so hopefully you've got a nice nest egg built up and you have another income stream that you can rely on in case you do get laid off. So there's benefits to both of those aspects. But if you have just one job and you are looking to keep it at all costs, I would recommend that you do anything that you can to show up and provide value so that your employer knows that if they lay you off, the business will be much worse off than if they laid someone else in your department off. Because really what you're trying to do is edge out your competition and hope that you are valued by your employer enough to be kept on in the case that they have to let people go in order to balance the books. And so that's it for this video today. If you enjoyed, please leave a comment or a like below about whether your employer is giving you the business or not. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys to kind of be able to place in your mind where your business ranks and whether or not you'll be able to hopefully stay employed coming up here soon, because I know that that's been a big worry of mine. Not saying that my company is particularly going to lay me off, but layoffs have already occurred at my company, and the layoffs have occurred at a lot of very large tech companies in very similar departments. And so I'm doing everything that I can to ensure that I can keep my job for the time being. And that's it for today. Thanks. I hope you had a great one.